Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Seriously, humor me. I want you to imagine a military mission.
Hmm.
But don't think about some quick special ops raid that's over in 40 minutes. Or even, a 6-month peacekeeping rotation where you're just counting the days.
Right.
I want you to imagine a mission that has been running nonstop for 19 years.
19 years. Just hearing that number out loud, it feels heavy.
It's an entire generation. I mean, that is long enough for a child to be born in Mogadishu, learn to walk, go to school, hit those awkward teenage years, and literally become an adult.
All while foreign tanks are patrolling their streets.
Exactly. The mission stops being an event, and it just becomes, I don't know, part of the furniture of life.
It really does. It stops being an intervention and it just becomes the status quo. It's the air you breathe.
And when you disrupt a status quo that has held for nearly 2 decades, the ripples, they aren't just military.
No, they're existential.
And that is exactly where we find ourselves today. We are unpacking a massive shift in East African security. The headline seems simple enough. Uganda is officially withdrawing its troops from Somalia.
But it's not that simple. When you dig into the reports and the announcements, which we've done, you realize this isn't just a standard trip rotation.
Not even close.
This is the end of an era. We're looking at the conclusion of active involvement that dates all the way back to 2007.
2007. I mean, think about the world in 2007. The first iPhone had just come out. That is how long these boots have been on the ground.
That's incredible.
So we've got official announcements, we've got reports on the UPCF, that's the Ugandan People's Defense Forces, for everyone keeping track of the acronyms.
And we have some truly bizarre details on how this news was broken to the world.
It is a fascinating case study in modern geopolitics, honestly.
For sure.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out what happens when the biggest player in the room decides it's time to pack up and go home. Does the building stand?
Or does the roof cave in? That's the fundamental question of stability here. Can Somalia stand on its own 2 feet after leaning on Uganda for 19 years?
And are we looking at a planned transition or, well, a dangerous vacuum?
Exactly.
So let's start with the announcement itself. Because if you're announcing the end of a 19-year military engagement involving thousands of troops, you'd expect, I don't know, a televised address?
A joint press conference, maybe?
Yeah.
Flags and anthems?
Something, maybe a signing ceremony?
A carefully worded PDF sent to the newswires, at the very least. Something with a letterhead.
Right. But that is not how this went down.
No. This news broke on Twitter. Or X, I suppose.
X, right. It came directly from General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. He's Uganda's army chief.
It's wild to think about.
I'm on there scrolling past, arguments about airline legroom and cat memes, and then bam, major geopolitical shift.
It really speaks to how the guardrails of diplomatic communication are just dissolving. But we have to look past the medium because the message itself, the specific wording the general used, is incredibly heavy.
It's not a throwaway comment. I have the tweet right here. He wrote, "After 19 years, we fully intend to withdraw our security forces from Somalia soon."
After 19 years. Let that sit for a moment.
Yeah, that's the phrase that stuck out to me immediately. It feels almost weary.
It has to. He's acknowledging the sheer weight of time. He's signaling this isn't a rash decision or some sudden budget cut. It's the closing of a chapter.
An acknowledgement of fatigue.
Absolutely. 19 years is a long, long time to have your young men and women in harm's way in another country. It's expensive, it's dangerous, and politically, it takes a toll.
It sounds almost like we've done our bit, we've held the line.
Exactly. We've paid our dues. But then you have to look at the other end of that sentence, that last word.
Soon.
Soon.
That is. Well, it's terrifyingly vague. If I tell my boss I'm finishing a report soon, he's not going to be happy. He wants a date.
He wants a calendar invite.
Right. But here we aren't talking about spreadsheets. We're talking about thousands of armed soldiers and heavy equipment.
And that ambiguity is dangerous. The source material notes that preparations for the withdrawal are reportedly underway.
But no timeline.
But there is absolutely no specific timeline provided. Is soon next Tuesday? Is it in 6 months? Is it by the end of the year? Nobody knows.
Imagine being on the ground in Mogadishu right now.
That's the perspective you have to take. Stability hates a vacuum, but it hates uncertainty even more. If you are a Somali citizen, you're wondering if your neighborhood is going to be safe next week.
If you're a soldier in the Somali National Army, you're wondering when your backup is just gone.
And if you're an international aid worker, you're looking at your security protocols and wondering if they're about to become totally obsolete.
Yeah.
Precisely. That word soon just hangs over everything like a storm cloud.
Yeah.
You know, the umbrella's being folded up. You just don't know when the rain is going to start.
It creates a paralyzed state where long-term planning becomes impossible.
Because the variables could change overnight. It puts everyone on edge, friends and enemies alike.
Okay, so we have the how and the when, or lack of a when, but let's talk about the who. Why does it matter so much that it's Uganda specifically?
Because there are other countries in the African Union mission, right?
There are. It's not just them out there.
Yeah.
There are others, yes. Burundi, Kenya, Ethiopia, Djibouti, they all contribute. It's a multinational effort. But you have to understand the scale of the Ugandan contribution to appreciate the size of the hole they're leaving.
You can't just swap them out like Lego blocks.
No, not at all.
So run the numbers for us. What are we subtracting from the equation here?
According to the reports, Uganda maintains the largest contingent of African Union forces in Somalia. We are talking about an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 troops.
5,000 to 6,000.
Yeah.
That's a brigade plus. That's a small town of people.
It's massive. In the context of peacekeeping, where resources are always stretched thin, Uganda isn't just a participant. They are the backbone.
Right.
If you think of the African Union mission as a building, Uganda isn't just a window or, a decorative facade. They are the main load-bearing pillar. So if you yank that pillar out, this contingent of 6,000 troops, without a perfect replacement...
The structural integrity of the entire mission is tested immediately. And we have to be clear, these troops aren't just sitting in barracks painting rocks.
Right, that's a key distinction. Sometimes peacekeeping can look a lot like observing, but the source material is very clear that these forces have been active.
Very active. They have been central to the fight against al-Shabaab. This is kinetic. This is frontline defense. For nearly 2 decades, the UPDF have been absorbing the shock of insurgent attacks.
They've been the ones holding the line.
In some of the most contested areas, yes. So when they leave, you aren't just losing bodies. You're losing 19 years of institutional knowledge. You're losing the muscle memory of the mission.
That's the part that is impossible to replace quickly.
Exactly. You can fly in 6,000 new soldiers from somewhere else tomorrow. You could bring them in from anywhere. But do they know the terrain? Do they know the local clan dynamics?
Do they know the specific ambush spots on the road to Johar? Probably not.
Definitely not. The UPDF has terrain mastery at this point. They've fought in the bush, they've fought in the city, they know the rhythm of the conflict.
And taking that capability off the board creates a gap.
A gap that al-Shabaab will be very eager to exploit. Experience is the one thing you can't fast-track.
And it's not just the fighting in the bush either. I was reading through the breakdown of where these troops are actually stationed, and it sent a chill down my spine. They aren't just out on some perimeter. They are guarding the absolute lifelines of the country.
This is critical. When people hear troops withdrawing, they might think of soldiers leaving a dusty outpost in the middle of nowhere. But the report specifies exactly what the Ugandans are protecting.
They're responsible for securing the Aden-Ad International Airport.
The international airport, let's context that. For a country like Somalia, which is still in a fragile state of recovery, the airport isn't just an airport.
It's not just about catching a flight?
No, it's the lung. It's how the country breathes. It is the primary connection to the outside world. It's where diplomats arrive. It's where the UN is based. It's where humanitarian aid flies in when there's a drought.
And usually these airports in conflict zones, they become safe havens, right? Like the Green Zone in Baghdad.
Exactly. The area around Aden-Ad is the nerve center for the international response in Somalia. It's a fortress.
So if security there is compromised even a little bit, what happens?
Flights stop. Insurance companies pull coverage. Diplomats evacuate. Aid dries up. The ripple effect is instant and catastrophic.
It's a choke point.
It is the ultimate choke point. And they aren't just at the airport, they're also at the Mogadishu port.
The economic heart, essentially.
Right. Somalia relies so heavily on imports, food, fuel, construction materials, medicine. It all comes through that port.
So the UPDF is effectively holding the keys to the kingdom. They control the door for people, which is the airport, and the door for goods, the port.
And the source mentions they guard other strategic locations as well, which, usually implies government buildings, presidential palaces.
The nervous system of the state.
Pretty much.
So this isn't just a security gap. This is an existential risk to the state's actual functioning. If the guys guarding the airport and the port pack up and leave soon, who takes the keys?
That is the question keeping Western diplomats and Somali officials awake at night. because handing over that responsibility isn't simple. It requires a level of trust and capability that takes years to build.
You can't just hand the keys to the airport to a unit that was formed 6 months ago. The stakes are just too high.
And that brings us to the brain drain aspect of this too, because they aren't just guards, are they? The source material mentions AUM.
AUSSO.
Yes, the African Union Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia. It's the successor to the previous missions, like AMISOM and ATMAS.
We love our acronyms in global security. We really do.
We do. But the point here is that Uganda hasn't just been providing muscle. They've been providing brains. They contribute senior military staff, commanders, logistics experts to the AUSOM leadership structure.
So they've been the mentors.
In many ways, yes. They've been helping to train and strengthen Somalia's own security forces. The goal has always been Somali-led security.
And Uganda has played a vital role in that training pipeline. They teach tactics, they teach command and control.
That's it. So when they withdraw, you're losing the coaches, not just the players.
That's a perfect analogy. If you lose the defensive line, that's bad. You can maybe plug that hole.
Wow.
But if you lose the coaching staff and the defensive coordinator at the same time,
That's a crisis. You lose the organizational structure that makes the army work. An army without leadership is just a crowd with guns.
that is a terrifying image. And this really frames the withdrawal as a turning point, which is how the source describes it.
A significant turning point in East African security cooperation. That phrase sounds momentous, but also precarious.
Turning points usually are. You can turn toward stability or you can turn toward chaos.
Right. The report describes the coming months as critical to see how Somalia adapts.
Adaptation. That's an interesting word choice. It implies the environment is going to change, and Somalia has to mutate to survive it.
It's not just business as usual with different soldiers. It's a whole new world. The dynamic is fundamentally shifting.
And here's where I found a fascinating contradiction, or maybe a tension in the source material. It notes that despite this withdrawal, analysts suggest there is a continued need for international support to maintain stability.
There it is.
Wait, let me get this straight. Uganda is leaving, but the experts are saying, hey, we still need international support.
Correct. The analysis is clear. The job isn't done.
That feels like a massive disconnect. We need help, but the help is leaving.
It highlights that this withdrawal is likely driven by politics, by policy, by fatigue, rather than the mission being accomplished in the traditional sense.
The fire isn't necessarily out.
But the fire department is packing up one of its biggest trucks because they've been there for 19 years and they have other things to do.
That's a sobering way to put it. It signals a shift in strategy. It feels like the international community is saying to Somalia, ready or not, here we go.
And the ready or not phase is the most dangerous phase in state building. The source says this could signal a shift in regional peacekeeping strategies.
Which might mean moving away from large permanent troop deployments toward what?
We don't know yet. Maybe more drone support, maybe just financial aid.
But cash doesn't guard an airport.
Exactly. Cash doesn't stop a suicide bomber at a checkpoint. Cash doesn't clear a roadside bomb. The vacuum is the biggest risk factor here.
Yeah.
Al-Shabaab is an opportunistic organization. They watch these things. They count the trucks leaving the base. They're Twitter too.
And they know that soon means their window of opportunity is opening.
If you are Al-Shabaab, you are looking at that pillar being removed, and you are calculating how much pressure you need to apply to make the roof collapse. You're planning your offensive right now.
And if you are the Somali government, you are looking at your own forces, the ones Uganda helped train, and wondering if they are truly ready.
The report mentions that Uganda helps strengthen those forces. But the real test of strength only happens when the mentor steps away.
You don't know if the kid can ride the bike until you let go of the seat.
And in this case, if they crash, the consequences are deadly.
It really puts into perspective how complex these long-term missions are. Getting in is easy. You land the planes, you set up tents, you shake hands.
But getting out, especially after 2 decades of integration, is a nightmare. Dependency is a natural byproduct of a 19-year presence. It's not anyone's fault. It's just physics.
And unwinding that dependency without causing a total collapse is the hardest maneuver in geopolitics.
You're trying to remove the scaffolding without shaking the building.
And doing it with a vague deadline of soon.
Right. It just adds an element of chaos to the whole procedure.
It feels like we are watching a high-stakes Jenga game in slow motion. So let's try to recap the board before we finish up.
Okay.
We have Uganda, the heavyweight champion of this mission, pulling out after 19 years.
Leaving a physical gap, of roughly 6,000 battle-hardened troops. That's the raw data.
Troops that are currently the primary security for the international airport and the main commercial port.
Basically, the country's lungs and heart.
Yeah.
If those go, the country goes into cardiac arrest.
And we have this vague timeline of soon delivered via social media, which is creating a pressure cooker of anxiety on the ground for everyone involved.
Sorry, everyone.
And finally, we have the realization that while the troops are leaving, the underlying problem, the need for stability, it remains. The mission isn't done, it's just changing.
And it changes the balance of power in the Horn of Africa. It's a major geopolitical shift that will define the region for the next decade.
If Somalia succeeds, it's a triumph of sovereignty.
But if it fails, we could see a return to the chaos of the early 2000s.
It really makes you think about the nature of these interventions. We always see the headlines when the wars start. Troops deployed, intervention begins.
We rarely focus enough on the end.
Because the end is messy, it's bureaucratic, it's slow. But as we're seeing here, the end is actually where the future of the nation is decided. How you leave matters just as much as how you arrived. So I want to leave you with a thought today, something to mull over. The source material leaned heavily on this idea of adaptation, Somalia needing to adapt.
It's the key theme.
If you have relied on a neighbor for your security, literally for the safety of your front door for nearly 20 years, is it actually possible to stand on your own soon?
Or does the withdrawal of a peacekeeper inevitably create a vacuum for the very forces they were fighting? Can you build a house while someone else holds up the roof? And does it stay standing when they let go?
That is the ultimate test, and we will have to wait and see how the structure holds. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into East African security.
It's a developing story, especially with that soon deadline, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it.
Absolutely. Stay curious. See you next time.